and I also with the detectives, and I'm still in touch with so many people that I've dealt with 40 and 50 years ago.
A side note here. Is Tim the one you get in the fight with?
Yes. Yep, we had some knockdown brawl.
Can you tell that
People
story?
don't even believe. Well, we were both bodybuilders, and he was always, when you're very good friends with somebody, right? You rag on them, you tease them, you break their balls, and we always broke each other's balls, his whose arms were bigger or stronger, you know. It was never a question mine were, but we would always argue. And one day I wasn't in a good mood, and he came up behind me. I was typing an arrest or something, or a DD5, which is a follow-up report on an investigation. He came up and grabbed me from behind. He grabbed my arm, and I just wasn't in the mood for it. And he grabbed my arm. He said, "That arm ain't so hard." And I just turned around with the typewriter and Underwood and smashed him in the chest with it. And that was it. That was like striking the match. It was a knockdown brawl. Not only did we fight in the detective squad room, it wound up going out into the hallway. We fell down a flight of stairs fighting into the public area of the desk. And nobody would interfere because they all knew us. And we started fighting into the parking lot of the police station. This went on for like 20, 25 minutes, maybe a half hour. It was ridiculous. We were both like having heart attacks here, We couldn't breathe. We're still, and then he even stuck me. They had, back then the cars had like emblems, and not in the grill, but coming up out of the hood. And he threw me on the hood. I got stabbed in the back with this thing, right? And then we still kept fighting. We were hardly, the fight, it was ridiculous. The punches weren't meaning anything. We were both like totally exhausted, we couldn't breathe. And then what stopped the fight is he ripped off or fell off a watch that I was wearing. That was my father's watch. And that was it. I said, "Stop, my father's watch." And we just stopped fighting. But we were best friends later, and we were partners for years.
The most unbelievable part of that story to me is nobody steps in.
Nobody would
Nobody
step in.
wants to break you up.
It's hard to
nothing.
believe, and people don't believe it, but people that were there know what happened. It was talked about probably still to this day, and this happened probably around 1980, 1980, about 1980. And it's still talked to about this day, probably, 45 years later, But people that were there know how long that went on, because fights last 3, 4, 5 minutes, that's a long time.
Yeah.
This was like 25 minutes. It was just nuts, because it was actually in 4 areas. It was in the detective squad, then down the steps, then into the front desk area, then out into the parking lot. But we had that kind of respect for each other.
Yeah.
And we both just had to let out some steam, So if we did that to each other, you can imagine what perpetrators went through that tried to disrespect us or fight us.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that would just be a preview.
Yeah.